you wanted the best, you've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Folks of Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com. Ladies and gentlemen, there, ladies, things that makes it official. Welcome to the Chris Voss Show. We are the oldest living podcast, I should say, not broadcast, but podcast that is still operating and putting up 1 to 2 new shows a day. There is nobody in the oldest podcast handful that's still doing that. So help support the show. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, YouTube.com/Chris Voss, and all those crazy places.
Opinions expressed by guests on the podcast are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the host or the Chris Voss Show. Some guests of the show may be advertising on the podcast, but it is not an endorsement or review of any kind.
Today, amazing young lady on the show with us today. We're going to be talking about her book and some of the things that she does and her app. And the book is entitled 80 Bites, The Real Science of Hormones, Eat Less, Lose More. And we're joined today by Joan Breibart. And we're going to get into it with her and find out the deets and the wonderful things she's going to do to help you improve the quality of your life. She is the owner of the Physical Mind Institute. If you know the name Pilates, it's because in 1991, she established the Institute for the Pilates Method and created the first Pilates certification program, the first videos called Working Out the Pilates Way, professional teacher training manuals, a newspaper called Pilates Forum, and a Pilates membership organization. The result was a tiny cult of about 100 Pilates teachers worldwide that grew from what it is today to what it is today. Pilates is the #1 exercise modality. Previously, she worked in publishing at Scholastic magazines and books in 1963, and then she started creative book services in 1968. Finally, she worked in the hair and beauty business, which are now more enjoyable than nutrition and fitness, and now wellness. Welcome to the show, Joan. How are you?
I'm okay. It's funny when I hear that long bio because I have obviously been working too long, started in 1963, and at this point, it's 35 years that I've been in Pilates, which now, of course, is called wellness. And it's changed too much, just way too much. And I started doing Pilates in New York when Joe was alive. And that was the 60s.
No. Joe
Pilates. There's an actual Pilates man.
Okay.
And in fact, you just said something that's so prevalent today. It's the #1 exercise modality, and perhaps the majority of people do not know there was an actual Joe Pilates. And all that apparatus he invented.
Wild stuff there. So, Joan, give us .coms, websites. Where do you want people to find more about you on the interwebs?
I'm going to talk today about what I call Pilates for the mouth, not the stomach. The stomach is the abdomen, and that'll be 80bites.com. Our major website for Pilates, and particularly professionals, is Physical Mind Institute. It used to be Institute for the Pilates Method, but then Body Mind, and we changed it, and Physical Mind is how we're known. And we're basically a professional organization, but Joe, I wanted to invent things, and he had 13 patents, I have 9. And so we've invented products for the body, including a wearable reformer called Type 4X, which is just getting out there. These are all relatively new products. And because Pilates is so well known now, people are getting into it in a deeper way. Hopefully, they'll continue. That was it. But the real problem today is not exercise, because there's so many exercise modules for everything, whether it's Peloton or SoulCycle or HIIT or whatever, and people are actually probably confused. But the real problem is that this mantra that's been around since the 60s, since Weight Watchers started in 1963, which essentially is eat healthy, exercise more, right? And everybody knows that. People who don't even have a gym membership or never heard of gluten or whatever maybe they just live on burgers and fried chicken and pizza. They know that phrase, right?
Uh-huh.
And everybody accepts the phrase except for Joan Breibart. I'm the only person who from the beginning thought it was the wrong formula. Now, of course, there's no studies to prove that it's wrong. There's studies to prove it right. But I want to tell you 2 announcements, which probably everyone listening has not heard. They're recent, but they're being covered up by the media. The first one was October 15th, 2025. So just a few months ago, right? And it was, I'm going to paraphrase because it was all in medical jargon. It was released by the Journal of American Medicine, right? Very prestigious organization. And it was complicated, but I'm going to make it simple. And that is, bye-bye BMI. Hey, it's waistline now, folks, waistline. And then the subtitle is, we're not 40% obese. Hello, we're 70%.
That sounds more right, yeah.
Yeah, so you are aware, apparently, that 40% was ridiculous, but most people are happy to hear that, particularly the media. So here is a major announcement, and it's endorsed by health organizations worldwide. I'm talking about in France and Germany and everywhere else. And the media has not picked it up, not one major publication. And so I wrote an op-ed about 2 months ago, a really good one. I sent you one version. I made a Bloomberg version, a New York Times version, a LA Times, everything. No one would publish it. And the reason they won't, and this is what the public has to understand, is if they were to publish this information, it would stampede their favorite mantra, eat healthy, exercise more. Because while it's a pretend 40, they can always say it really works, but not enough people are doing it. But of course, the sales, which are in the trillions and trillions for every food and exercise and diet and wellness and whatever, prove that people are doing it, they are buying it, and that it's failed. Obviously, if 70%, if we're really 70%, hey, it's not working. And it isn't working, and it's not working because it's wrong. But only recently did we find out that there were other issues. It used to be this simple thing that everyone's heard, calories in, calories out, right? You've heard that, it's calories. And every box with whatever it has in it, or jar, has calories on it, right? And recipes tell you the calories. Even sometimes restaurants tell you the calories. So it was all so simple, calories a unit of energy, and everybody believed it, and it seemed like, wow, we've hit it, right? It's easy. Just reduce the number of calories. Don't eat as many calories, which could mean eat a lot of quantity. You could have 10 bags of spinach and only have 100 calories, right?
Yeah.
You could have one little piece of butter, that would be 100 calories. So it was all this pushing towards what we know is low fat, right? And you know what happened to that. The government pushed it, and then later on, we're talking the 70s, the food had no taste, of course. So they put sugar in it, right? So then everyone was having more sugar, but not as much fat. And you still see on labels low fat, right? It's all
no fat, and it has got sucralose
no fat,
or
low fat, whatever.
some
and
hidden fake sugar.
That's code for it's low in calories. Eat a lot.
Yeah.
Eat a lot. Eat it. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with the government, our government, wanting to support farmers and agriculture. It's a big part of who we are, right? We've got a lot of agriculture. But what happened was that it was all put under the guise of health. And so the easiest thing for the government to do back when they were trying to get people to buy more was to get rid of fat, because fat has 9 calories per gram. Not that Americans eat in no grams, but it's still in grams. And 4 for carbohydrates and 4 for protein, right? So let's get rid of fat, right? So you see all this. But it backfired, obviously, because without fat, food has no taste, no satiety, and we all know it's backfired.
Okay,
Yeah.
Well.
So that's the kind of thing that's been kept under the rug. There have been people writing about it, but basically people just, it's so boring, who cares about it, right? And then meanwhile, we keep getting fatter and fatter. But now what do you hear now? You hear protein, right?
Yeah.
Protein, everything's protein. I actually passed a store in Chelsea where I live, and it's one of these coffee places in New York City. There's a coffee place on every corner, I'm telling you. And then there's a Pilates studio also. But anyway, they were saying that they had protein in the coffee. I don't mean in the milk, which has protein, but in the coffee. So, but if you look up the literature, 5 years ago, dietitians were saying, oh, Americans eat too much protein. Obviously, we live on burgers and fried chicken and pizza and cheese. That's a lot of protein. And they need to eat more fruits and vegetables. You hear that? Okay. But not today. Not today. And do you know why it switched all of a sudden to protein? I mean,
Why?
Because all of these GLP, Ozempic, Mounjaro, these drugs that really do work, right? They work. Now, before that, there were drugs that people tried for 50 years. They had things to speed up your metabolism, right? And things to maybe remove the fat. There's a drug called Alli, A-L-L-I, big pharmaceutical company. All these things were out there because people were always wanting to lose weight, right? So they tried them, but those drugs were terrible. And some people had bad reactions and they didn't work. But these drugs that are out now absolutely work. And they work with hormones. Heard of hormones? Nobody. Women having their period heard of hormones, but nobody else, right? You didn't know about hormones. Yeah. It wasn't like if you were thinking about your weight, you wouldn't immediately think about hormones, would you?
Initially, now we know a lot.
Now we know.
Like 20 or something.
Yeah. But knowing this is only in the past 5-6 years, right? We didn't know before.
Yeah.
We had no idea about cortisol, insulin, ghrelin, leptin, all these weirdo names. Who knew those? Nobody. But let's talk about 80 Bites, which is our Pilates for the Mouth program. Okay, it sounds like we've never heard of it, and we must have made it yesterday. In fact, it was launched, get ready, 1987, April 1987 in Self magazine.
Okay. They've
heard of every diet and obviously keto and Mediterranean and Weight Watchers and Jenny Craig and Nutrisystems, and there's thousands and thousands, right? But no one's heard of 80 Bites. And it was launched in 1987 and it was in Self magazine. Self magazine was huge then. It still is. There's still a Self magazine and women read it. It's online now, and it was called the No Diet Diet, and it was written by Candace Bushnell, Sex in the City. She wrote Sex in the City. So this big deal magazine took this unknown diet and they hired a really great writer and they published 5 pages. Now, why did they do that? This was 87 and most of America was not really fat then, right? But it was starting.
Yeah.
Starting, okay. But more than that is it was my friend and partner, Meredith Luce, whose grandfather was Henry Luce, Claire Booth Luce, who started Time Life and Look and Time, every major magazine, Modern Journalism. So Meredith Luce was a registered dietitian, still is, and also a celebrity. So when she suggested to Self that we had just put this together, they were happy to do it. And it was a beautiful spread. But of course, there was no internet then, so nobody could immediately write in and say, oh, how do we find this diet? Or where do we do it? Or whatever. But there seemed to be no real response to this huge article that I still have, of course. And then the managing editor of Self magazine, which of course is owned by Condé Nast, one of the biggest publishers in the world, took us out to celebrate the publication to a restaurant in Manhattan in the mid-50s, where it was only small portions. That's all it was, small. And we thought, wow, we're really in sync. This is going to be the biggest thing going. Everybody's going to do it. And this is what timing. Great, great, great. Guess what? The restaurant closed 6 months later.
Oh, and it was just small bites that they served, huh?
Yeah.
Like small portions.
Small portions. So I guess even in New York City and Manhattan, before we got to where we are now, which is 70%, Americans voted. No, we want to keep eating. We want to eat a lot. We don't want to eat small. We want all-you-can-eat restaurants and supersize this, right? Remember?
Yeah, supersize it, yeah.
Supersize, 25% more. when you get 3 times the quantity, right? But it all seemed to be workable. It was obviously great for business, right? Trillions and trillions of dollars is the food business, right? And so everybody thought, there's no problem here. We'll just keep telling people, eat healthy, exercise. So exercise became what you needed to do to, what they call, this is straight from the media, torch those pesky calories. In other words, get on your bike, beat your body up on a bike or on some other machine, and then good news, those calories will just evaporate. You may have eaten 200 bites for lunch, but if you then go and take a spinning class, they'll all disappear, right? Everybody believes that. But of course that didn't happen, because that's not how the body works. And worse, do you know that today we have 7 times the hip replacement operations than we had 25 years ago?
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
That's
it's horrible. And knees and I'm 85. So I come from a time when there was no exercise. That's an important thing that I'm saying here. I forgot to add is that the young people today, and I deal with young people because I'm in the Pilates business, right? And all the nutritionists and all the health coaches, everyone wants to be a health coach, by the way. This is a whole new business. And they have made up this narrative about why we were thin in the 40s and 50s.
Oh, okay.
Do you know what it is?
Well, you got out in the sun and exercised. We weren't sitting in computers all day, and we probably ate food that didn't have all the high fructose corn syrup and all that crap in it.
Great. You just said it. You said it exactly, perfectly, whatever. But you're too young to know that it's a total lie. It's a total lie because I was there. I was born in 1941, okay? That was World War II, and we had food rationing. Yeah, we didn't have a lot of food because we had food rationing, right?
Ah.
And in fact, in England, that food rationing lasted until almost 1950. So can imagine the exact opposite of the environment. It's not like you went to Staples and there are 25 pieces of candy and whatever. There was no food anywhere, right? Because it was going to support the troops. So you have a population of people who are thin. They're very thin. They don't have a lot to eat. And even then afterwards, when the food rationing ended, and I'm talking 40s and 50s, okay? Because these have started to change. Everybody's thin. There's no, if you saw a fat person, you turn around and stare at them, right? Of course, there's no PC. And people have this idea that you're just articulating that we all ate wholesome food. Everything we ate was wholesome. It wasn't processed. It didn't have any trans fats. It's all garbage. 100% pure garbage. Because yes, there were not restaurants. People only went to a restaurant, let's say on their birthday or some anniversary or something. But food was cooked at home. But what was it cooked in? It was cooked in Crisco. That was the shortening, not butter, Crisco. And Crisco is 100% trans fats.
Oh,
100%.
yeah.
It was the worst of trans fats, right?
Yeah.
But that's why the pie crusts were so delicious, right? And the cookies and all that. So not only was the food cooked in Crisco, not butter, not olive oil. Nobody even had olive oil in America. They didn't even know what it was. But we had white flour. We didn't have any whole wheat or anything like that. And we had sugar. We didn't even have sugar substitute. So basically, all of this narrative that we're eating so wholesome and everything is fresh. Vegetables were mostly canned and then later frozen. There were hardly any fresh vegetables.
Yeah.
Basically, what was different? It was different. And of course, there were no health clubs. Do you know that health clubs only really started in the 70s?
Yeah, I remember when Jack LaLanne started them and was really popular. Jack LaLanne was like a god back then.
Yeah. But all of this, even when health clubs started in the 70s, and I can remember them, hardly anybody went. People didn't exercise. So the beautiful narrative that everybody was exercising all the time is not only a total lie because nobody had exercise clubs or DVDs or home or whatever, but the sitting thing is really crazy. We sat more because people sat and read books. They actually read books seated, right? Yeah. And they didn't have their phone they were working around on. They played board games. Women who were not working were playing card games, canasta, and then mahjong and everything. So people sat. And then they did all sorts of other things like all the family would watch the 3 hours of television in black and white. So this is the phoniness that I'm trying to expose of this business, because it's really at a breaking point.
Yeah. There's a lot to that. Let me help you. With 80 bites, what does the title mean?
Okay. So again, I want you to know that this is nothing new. It's basically how people ate in the 40s and 50s before they knew anything about nutrition or gluten or calories or protein and everything. They ate food, right? Only food. And what we did was simply take that style of eating, which is only meals. By the way, no adults in the 40s and 50s would snack. That would have been considered tacky. And nobody, of course, walked around the street. Do you know I saw somebody in the subway a few days ago eating a Caesar salad? In the subway. I don't know if in New York subways, there's rats there, people peeing in the subway. I mean, you don't want to eat in the subway. But
you put the anchovies on it, it keeps people away from you.
Yeah, okay. The anchovies. The rats hate anchovies, right? The smell of it. That's a good idea.
That'll keep everyone away from you.
But so now this constant eating is accepted, but people don't know that adults did not eat. We only ate meals, and pretty much it was 3 meals. Sometimes you might have a little meal in the afternoon, some tea or coffee or pick-me-up. But so we're talking about a style of eating where no one overate. And even dietitians who hate me and are totally into wellness will admit that the quantity, when they have just to look up the numbers, the agriculture department has them, the numbers are that people eat twice what we ate in 40s and 50s, and everyone was happy. No one said, oh, I'm starving.
Yeah.
But why weren't people hungry? That's what I want you to think about, because everyone's hungry now.
That's something to think about, definitely. So with 80 bites, the instruction there is, I guess, of the genre that I need to use portion control and hormone balancing weight management by only taking 80 bites a day. Is that correct? Across 4 meals?
Yes, it is pretty much correct, but it's a little more complicated. It's only meals. It's not snacks. Obviously, it's not binging. But at this point, because the situation is so dire, I'm going to add to it and say other things, which is eat only what you like. Now, what you like might not be the ideal meal that some nutritionist is going to tell you to eat, or some dietitian, whatever, but people have to understand this dirty secret, that this obesity is not just because people eat too many of everything. It's because of binging. And that is what we used to call, but no one talks about it, public-private eating. And in New York, you see it so obviously. You go to a party where they have fabulous hors d'oeuvres and no one's eating them, right? But they don't want to appear to be eating, right? Because they're already fat and they don't want to look like they're eating. But this is really underneath it. So basically with 80 bites, it's to retrain yourself. Now, it's very easy to do this. And you're going to say, oh, it's impossible to do it because I'm hungry. Now we know that you can take one of these. They're in pill form now. And I'm going to tell you that it's more than pill. There's other companies besides Eli Lilly, which is the American company, which is, I think, now the most valued pharmaceutical company in the world because of this drug they have. And then there's Novo Nordisk in Denmark, which the sales of that company are greater than the entire Danish economy, right? So there's a huge demand. And I say to people, this drug should be in our water supply. Get rid of fluoride and put this in the water supply. But of course, no one will do that because everybody who's on the drug, and this is I'm talking about the head of Walmart, the president of Walmart is on record saying that when people get the prescription in Walmart for the drug, whatever one they're taking, their food purchases decline by 25%. That's on record.
Yeah.
And the reason that they decline is that these people are no longer hungry. They're like me, because I've never stretched my stomach, you see, never did it. And this is the hard thing for people to understand, is that you hear that you can stretch your stomach, but it'll go right back. Now they are saying, because they're hedging it a bit, it's not as sensitive. But the truth is, obviously, this thing under your left breast, this little container here, is what people should have been focusing on. And for Pilates, it's all about your body, your core, your center, right? So we're really talking about paying attention. Now, if someone gets our app, which is 99 cents, which if they used it in one day, they'll save that amount of money. They're going to find out when they tap each time when they take a bite and they're having a meal, they're going to find out that when they get to 26 bites and it starts to yell at you, the app yells at you then. They're going to find out, and we have a mascot called Sam's Stomach, and Sam will yell at you. You're going to find, if you're 70% of America, that you're just beginning. You're just beginning. You're not even close to feeling full. But if you're on the drug, yes, you're ending.
Yeah. It's funny. I took the GLP-1 for 3 months. I actually put on weight. I did start testosterone replacement therapy at the same time. So I may have been putting on a lot of muscle, which I tend to do whenever I work out or do stuff. But I after 3 months, going up 12, 15 pounds or something. I was like, yeah, I don't think this works. But the tune out was great. But I already use a lot of portion control, so I can really advocate for what you're talking about, portion control. Usually when I go out to eat, I usually cut the meal. It's usually a nice meal, good size. I usually cut that in half. So
you're already doing it. You're naturally doing it, okay? Yeah, but you have to understand that you're looking at it. You look at the plate first, right? And you say, wow. You may not say how many bites it is. I can tell just by looking at how many bites. But you say, this is more than my stomach wants. That's what you're saying, right? Yep. Okay. Now, one of the problems why it's Bye-Bye BMI is good in Hello Waistline is that we always knew that it was sort of stupid because of the fact that if you gain muscle is going to weigh more. So, yes, you play for the NFL, you have a lot of muscle. You're a Navy SEAL, you have a lot of muscle. But you may have almost no fat, right? Mm-hmm. So that's a very confusing thing for people to understand, right? And the truth is that most women, of course, they would have to take steroids to get a lot of muscle. But for men, you can get a lot of muscle and they want muscle. And that's why the weight is silly. So what it is now is waistline. And essentially what the government has said, and the media refuses to report it, absolutely refuses to report it, is 35 inches, you've got a problem. You've got a problem. And the reason is that your waistline, it doesn't matter if you've got fat thighs or a fat ass or fat anything, just your waistline. And the reason that is so important is that it's called visceral. Have you heard of this? Visceral fat. Do you know what that is?
No.
No. Okay. So nobody else does either. Basically speaking, when it all started, we just had fat. When the only reason people wanted to get rid of fat was that it was unattractive. It didn't look good, or their pants were too tight or something. It had no health reasons. It was all aesthetics. All of this health stuff is much later. I'm talking about the 60s when Weight Watchers started. Uh-huh. But then because of all the dieting and the crazy exercising and all the other manipulations and everything, and we're talking decades, what happened is that this innocent fat, which was called subcutaneous fat, right? Well, if you look at a baby, how fat they are, that's cute, right? And there's nothing wrong with it. Okay. It turned in the past 20 years to something called visceral fat. And so now, and this was reported by the Washington Post, CBS, and you're going to read about it all over, every place. Everybody, the title is called 9 out of 10 Americans have this condition and they don't know it. So, of course, in the Washington Post, everybody read it. And what is the condition? It's called CKM. Do you know what that is?
No.
Okay, of course you don't, because no one does yet. CKM is this complicated thing that the medical establishment has put together so they can monitor our downfall. That's basically what it is. It means cardiovascular kidney metabolic syndrome. And so what they're saying is that even if you're not fat, let's say you don't have a 35-inch waistline, you're not fat, you may have high blood pressure. Do you know that half Americans have high blood pressure?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Or you may have high cholesterol or high or all these other things that you can't find out by looking at yourself. You have to have a blood test, right? So, but your doctor might tell you. Anyway, So we're saying at this point, when they're announcing it, it's unbelievable that 9 out of 10 Americans are damaged. I am in the 10% that's undamaged. I have low blood pressure. I am slim. My waistline is small, and I'm not. But that is highly unusual, apparently.
Yeah. Now, can we get to the app? Because I want to get the app in here and talk about the app.
Okay, so the app is really fun. And people are using it. And here's what you do. You get the app, and first thing you're going to do is tap on something. It'll say bite, and you tap on it. When you're eating, you're sitting by yourself with your phone, which you have anyway, right? Phone's always there. Have to turn off so that you don't get disrupted. And then something will pop up, and it'll be a saying from Sam's stomach, who's our mascot, which will be, hey, have fun, enjoy yourself, right? Instead of, oh, that's not healthy or something. And then you'll hopefully eat the bite properly, but you won't naturally do it because people don't do what people used to do, which is taste the food and chew and chew and chew and chew. And I could go on 7 times, and that's what you should be chewing every bite. Soup, you should keep it in your mouth and taste it, right? So we're talking about a different way to eat. We don't care what you eat. We're interested in how much, how often, and how. And chewing is critical.
And so people can download the app on the iOS store
and
or the Android.
Android, yeah.
And then you do some consulting as well here, I think, on the website, don't you? There's email support and coaching sessions.
Oh, yeah, and that's all provided for free. But there are people that have, I try to tell them not to do it. There's one man in Texas wants to pay me $150 every single week just to talk to him. And it's not necessary. He's got to, at some point, just be able to do this. But yes, we'll help anybody do anything because it's pretty dire. And our program is 100% opposed to all the chat that they hear. So when you talk about portions, let me just clarify that. Portions, based on what dietitians tell you, are if it's low in calorie and healthy, like spinach, let's say, okay, you can eat as much as you want, right? Mm-hmm. Weight Watchers gives you 200 foods that you don't even have to count their point value. You can just eat and eat and eat and eat and eat. And the medical establishment or the dietitians think, oh, that's fine because it doesn't have a lot of calories. But it's not fine. It upsets the hormones in your stomach because the hormones are there and they don't like all this quantity. And then they go haywire and then you become hungry. And then you snack because you're hungry and you set up this vicious cycle. It's not, portions based on calories are not what we do. I have a video on our site showing me with 10 bags of spinach, 10 bags, and they are 100 calories and one little bit of butter. And that's 100 calories, right?
Yep.
So it's really, you get to a point now, people can't dissect every bite. It's crazy. They'll go crazy. They're going crazy. To be able to gradually eat less food, less often, and do it slowly and properly. One guy who really was benefited by it, he said to me, oh, sure, but now every meal takes twice as long as it used to. I said, well, you should be enjoying it, so why don't have to rush. But if you watch people, I'm in New York, I see people. I'm in places all around where you see people. People just open their mouths, take a bite, and swallow it. That's it.
Yeah, it's as simple as that. Portion control really works because, like you say, it keeps from. I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it takes 30 minutes or so for the stomach to feel full.
Yes.
So there's kind of a delay. So if you're just stuffing your face to try and with 5 million bites of whatever to fill your stomach and you're waiting for the stomach to give you a signal, that's a bad sign.
Yeah, but that's why with proper eating that we learned and came from Europe, people would have what they might call an aperitif, or they would have a little bit of a bite of something because of something that might be high in calories, or they might have a sip of wine because that will raise your blood sugar, right? So your stomach is not going to give you a signal, right? But if your blood sugar is raised a little bit because you had a sip of wine, then you're not going to be so ravenously hungry.
Yeah. And in Europe and in a lot of countries, but Europe, they always, even my friends, I think in Australia, they always give me a bad time about, geez, your portions that you guys eat in one meal is just incredible compared to the rest of the world. And that tells you what you need to know.
They're right, but it's embarrassing at this point. So it's only, I'd say, in the past 10 years that they are so obviously huge. They were getting huge, they were bigger, but now it's a laugh.
Yeah, definitely. So you counsel people on advice with your program. There's the app for the, it's called the 80 Bites app. I think you can find it on the thing. Yeah. And then there's the book. And then we should clarify this too, because a lot of people go to Amazon when they hear book. They can get the 80 Bites, The Real Science of Hormones, Eat Less, and Lose More off of your website.
Yes, but you have to understand, it looks like a book, but it's not. It has 14 videos in there.
Oh, okay.
It's an interactive experience, which is why it's not on Amazon, because you can't, if electronic, a Kindle can't accommodate it, right? Tried to put an abbreviated version, but it's not good. So this is an interactive program, and I'll tell you something that happened a few weeks ago. A person sent an email and wanted to query specifics about it, right? And of course, I immediately answered and told her this and that and whatever. And then she said, okay, I think I'm going to do it. It's $25 a month, right? And I just stopped and I went, because it's $25 for life. And she thought it was, so I think, wow, I've underpriced this significantly. Yeah. But the fact is that someone goes through it and they finish, and maybe they can finish it in a couple of weeks or so, but they shouldn't, because it's 12 steps and they should take every step for a week. So that's already 3 months. But after they finish it, they'll have to start and go right back and do it again, because they're not going to be able to understand this information. It's simple, but it's so contradicted by everything they hear. I'll give you one example. A woman started it, and of course, as we keep saying, we're not talking about calories, we're talking about quantity and hormones and hunger. And when I have my coffee, is it okay if I have 2% milk rather than skim? Now, we're talking about 4 calories here, if that would be whatever. And I thought, oh my gosh, lady, you've got to go and start all over again and go back. That's how brainwashed people are. You're thinking that you're going to be putting 2 tablespoons of milk in your coffee, and you don't know whether it should be whole milk or 2% or skim. That's why we have problems, because that would drive any normal person crazy. And that's what we've done, drive people crazy. And the success now of Pilates is because it's really, it's horrible to say this because I'm in this business. It's the success of Pilates demonstrates that all of the exercise that people were told to do was not really correct. And obviously the hip replacements, we have more back pain today when people are supposedly exercising than we had before there was any exercise.
Wow. Yeah. It's pretty wild. So as we round up the show, give people a final pitch out to work with you, work with your wares, and check out all the .coms you have, et cetera, et cetera.
I think that on our website, Physical Mind, you're going to find a wearable reformer, which is what people can use. But most importantly, we have something called Parasetter, which when you lie down on Parasetter, you will be able to bring down cortisol. And that is one of the biggest problems, elevated cortisol. So I really urge that. This is a product people buy and use. They don't return it. They don't let it sit around. They actually use it. And it's so pleasurable. You'll be so happy. And then we have others. We have something called the minis, which are really great for people who have feet problems like plantar fasciitis. The rave reviews on Amazon. All the products are on Amazon, by the way. It's only 80 Bites that you have to come to our site, 80bites.com or Physical Mind Institute. But the products are on Amazon. We have a big store there, and it's easy to get them. All
right. So, and then I think we got the .coms in there as we were going out.
It's 80bites.com, right? And then physicalmindinstitute.com. And Physical Mind is a very big site because we have all the products, and then we have professional Pilates training, which is complicated.
Yeah, definitely complicated.
Yeah.
So there we go. As we go out, Joan, thank you very much for being on the show. We really appreciate it.
It's been interesting.
And pick up her book, 80 Bites, The Real Science of Hormones. Eat less, lose more. Thanks so much for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, linkedin.com/Chris Voss, youtube.com/Chris Voss, and all those crazy places on the internet. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you guys next time.
You've been listening to the most amazing, intelligent podcast ever made to improve your brain and your life. Warning, consuming too much of the Chris Voss Show podcast can lead to people thinking you're smarter, younger, and irresistible sexy. Consume in regularly moderated amounts. Consult a doctor for any resulting brain bleed.